He is the stand-up comic who founded Yuk Yuk, easy for me to say, discovered Jim Carrey and wrote jokes for the late Joan Rivers.
Among his many accolades and accomplishments, our next guest recently received the Order of Canada. It was Tuesday, I believe. Please welcome
Deservedly so.
The man who put Canada squarely on the comedy map, Mark Breslin. It's about time you received that pin.
Thank you. You got it wrong. I was ordered to leave Canada.
Oh, okay.
But you know what? I took the pin anyway.
Listen, what did it feel like? I say it's about time. It's been 40-some decades in the business.
42 years in the business,
Yes.
which is more than I ever thought it would be.
I can imagine.
I thought it was just a summer job and I would meet some chicks.
It's an institution.
Can I say that now?
Did it work?
Yeah.
Oh, all right, perfect.
It did, actually.
So it was literally around the corner was where it all started. It was 1976?
Yeah, 1976, 519 Church Street in the basement. The worst possible space for comedy. Long and narrow. It had been a bowling alley, and we had to get out at 10 o'clock in the evening. The guy would come in, the custodian, and put on the lights and say, okay, everybody out. And then we moved to Yorkville, and everything changed. 1978.
And 14... is it 14?
Yeah, we have 14
clubs
clubs across the country. Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, there's only 11 American, but still, that's still good, right?
Oh, it's amazing. And it's turned out a ton of talent, like Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey, Howie Mandel, Russell Peters.
Seth Rogen.
Yes, Seth Rogen,
Yeah.
Tom Green.
What was it with the order, when they told you you're getting the Order of Canada? Did you ever think, because you call yourself prickly and bristly? And...
Well, that wasn't the most obvious choice in some ways because I was, first of all, I'm not rural, and we have a huge hoser tradition in comedy in Canada, and I'm not that guy. And I was trying to do comedy and support comedy that was for a very urban audience, and that was a big shift. And also, just stand-up itself was a big shift. There really hadn't been any stand-up before we started Yuk Yuk's.
Which brings us to 2018. You had an interesting point, Raj.
Well,
in this day and age of everything PC.
Can you do comedy still? Are they
Sure.
doing comedy, the traditional comedy?
Sure. It depends on the audience and where you go. If you go to a good comedy club, it's uncensored. Yuk Yuk's has always been uncensored. If somebody comes up to me and an audience member says, I didn't like what he said about abortion, I'll say, I'm sorry, here's tickets to another show, but we're not changing what the comic says. We always support the comic when it comes to what they're talking about. But the market's self-selecting. People who are really sensitive about certain issues don't go to comedy clubs.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think it's so important to push past that and stay within the integrity of what it means to be a comedian and make people feel uncomfortable? Why is that so important?
I think you want to push the envelope. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, comics are the official opposition. In life. And that's certainly true in the States now, where these comedy clubs are about the only place that free speech exists. And the reason free speech can exist in a comedy club is because we play at a very simple level. I don't have government funding. I don't have corporate funding. We can say what we want. And if the audience doesn't like it, well, they don't have to come back. But they do come back, and our clubs are packed, and we have 1 million customers a year. So what does that really tell you? You might be worried about this, political correctness, but I've seen these waves happen at least 3 times before. In the mid-'80s, when I used to bring in Sam Kinison and Andrew Dice Clay, there were pickets outside the clubs, feminists for a healthy humor. Well, healthy humor, that's like a sober orgy. Who really wants that? And if you know anything about comics, you know that we're not healthy people. We're deranged, and that's the value.
And you worked with the late, great Joan Rivers.
I
need to
did.
talk about that. What was that first encounter like? Because I understand she flew you over to her home in L.A., was it?
That's right. And she walked out into the room, her beautiful, beautiful house, and she was completely covered in bandages.
From plastic surgery?
Yeah, but I couldn't say anything because it was kind of a job interview, so I had to conduct this kind of job interview without even mentioning it. And then finally, she brought her assistant down, and they had something, their ear was all bandaged up. And then she brought in her manager an hour after that, and he had his nose all bandaged up. And I said, what have I wandered into? And she said, you have to understand, in this place, if I have a good year, God willing, I get each of my key people and I buy them a piece of plastic surgery.
Oh, my gosh.
And if you work for me, what would you like to do? And I said, well, I've always wanted a penis reduction. And she said, you're in. You're going to fit in great here.
You know what's hilarious? I met her once, and she told me I needed a boob job. Like my daughter, Melissa. Nothing too big, just some small B's, and you'd be good. That was so Joe. That was her gift, was imparting plastic surgery advice.
She was addicted to this. She was addicted to this stuff, and she was also really very materialistic. I went on a shopping trip with her once. She said, I want to buy some new dresses. We drove down to Eamon Wardy in a Rolls Royce, and she spent $420,000 that day.
$420,000?
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
And it's so ironic that that's how she left us, was doing the one thing that
I
she was
know.
really addicted. Isn't that something?
I know.
She was incredible.
She was great to work with, and you know how you can tell a really good comic on TV is the way they treat their writers.
Okay.
Because some comics, some stars treat their writers horribly. In fact, most do.
Is that right?
But she didn't. She loved her writers. She would rather spend time in her writer's room than with anybody else.
Well, thanks for making us laugh all these years.
I was going to ask, is there anybody standing out for you right now before we go?
Lots of people. You just have to come down to Yuk Yuk. You'll see tomorrow's stars today.
Now, that's a good plug right there.
Do you like that one?
Look at favorites. They're all amazing.
And if Mark is down there, he'll be wearing the pin as well. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very
Good
much
to
for
see
coming
you.
in.
Thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you.